Hi, everyone, and welcome to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K Laidlaw. Wendy has spent the last 2 years helping women with various stages of endometriosis to heal naturally after putting her condition into remission. After her own healing success from stage 4 endometriosis and adenomyosis, she's inspired to heal others, and her goal is to help some of the 175 million women know that there is another way other than painkillers, drugs, or surgery. This is the place to be for real talk with real people for real results, so you can learn how to heal your endometriosis naturally. Please note that the opinions expressed in this program may represent options, but are not a substitute for proper medical care. Before starting any new healthcare program, we recommend you consult with a health professional.
Hey everyone, it's Wendy here. As always, I hope this finds you well. So this week we are going to talk about abandonment. And if you're wondering what I mean by abandonment, what on earth is abandonment? It is a state of feeling when perhaps as a child that maybe a situation occurred, or maybe it was an ongoing situation where you didn't get your needs met in some way, shape, or form, and then you were left with this space in your head and in your heart that made you feel that you were invisible, unwanted, unloved, unappreciated, and literally kind of abandoned by the roadside to fend for yourself. And the sad thing about when that does occur is you then get this sense of feeling absolutely lost, alone, isolated, and separate from the world. And the irony is, of course, when you're little, you don't have the knowledge, the reassurance, perhaps the access to resources when you're younger, because you're solely dependent on the caregivers that are there to take care of you. But as you know, as is more common than not, for whatever reason, and we're never here to bash anybody's parents, but for whatever reason, if you didn't get your needs met, and they could have been very, very basic needs, just reassurance and recognition and lots of hugs, safe hugs and kisses, or a non-violent environment, or just lots of kind of encouragement and reassurance and being uplifted and supported and feeling safe. Because at the core of every child is this natural innate desire to feel safe and love and know that they are seen and heard and valued. But, as I've mentioned before previously, throughout history, there have been all these terrible tragedies and traumas that have gone on. And only now are we educated enough to understand the importance of perhaps journaling or therapy or counseling or some way of processing what is being stuck. And once you've obviously, once certain countries or societies or parts of the world have experienced trauma, and everybody is in trauma, then people process or deal with trauma in very different ways. And I guess one of the questions is, how is it that some people can see a traumatic event? It could be a car crash, it could be something or other, and walk away from that and not be disturbed, whereas somebody else could develop post-traumatic stress disorder by even observing it, being an observer of that, and then kind of and then being stuck in those repeated post-traumatic stress states for so long. And I guess it all starts with that feeling of connection. From the moment that we are born, we are all our natural instincts are attaching us through hormones and things like that to our mother, and our mother to us. But if that is broken in any way or separated in any way, maybe there's been there's been situations in the hospital where the mothers haven't been able to see their baby. Maybe they've had a cesarean, or maybe there's been an upset or a situation with that, and there hasn't been that bonding develop. Then what happens to the baby's nervous system? So from right at a young age, the baby's nervous system is kind of this little moldable little sponge that is adapting purely sensory to its environment. Our our kind of old reptilian brain is all about survival. That oldest part of the brain that is keeping the heart pumping, the blood around the body, that is keeping the lungs working, that is just purely in survival mode. But if the baby isn't put skin to skin, if the baby has come out of what was a safe enclosed environment out into this world by itself, all alone, then it can ultimately feel very, very lost and vulnerable. And these overriding nervous system survival systems kick into place to seek out safety. And so what does a child do? So a baby, again, will only have very primitive requirements or ways of asking for help. So it does so by crying. And but if nobody responds to that baby's crying when it's little, what does the baby then learn? Well, the baby then either cries itself to sleep or is left feeling there is nothing and there is nobody there. And remember, this is pre-verbal. This is before any language has been developed, and can end up feeling it takes up tension inside its body, and it is adapting and learning to its environment. So and then by the time the babies even 6-month-old babies are very connected to their mother. So they just by looking at the pupils of the eyes of the mother or the caregiver, they can tell whether or not that they are being well received or not by that caregiver or by that mother. Again, they can even tell by the tension that is in the arm of the mother whether or not that mother is angry or is stressed or is loving or is welcoming. Now, there's many psychological kind of studies and things being done, and what I particularly like is about one of the terms that is used, which is a good enough mother. So what I'm saying here, for those who are mothers, please don't feel that you have to be this perfect Stepford wife, Stepford mother, be perfect, smiling and singing and have birds tweeting all the time. That's just not life. But it's that phrase, being a good enough mother, is being there as much as you can, not only for your child, your children, but yourself. But what about the babies that didn't have that feeling of even a good enough mother? And it was a perpetual abandonment, perpetual neglect, perpetual mistreatment. Then what messages, how does that human organism, if you like, adapt to its environment? It does so by withdrawing. And when we talk about, rather when I talk about abandonment, is that ultimate feeling of abject loneliness, abject, would anyone even notice, that invisibility. So this is where we start to kind of really explore. There's a wonderful doctor called Dr. Kim Jobs, who talks about diseases for meaning, as in what is the meaning behind certain diseases. And part of his work, is incredible, is he starts to kind of unravel, getting to the core of why the nervous system or why the body has adapted and set itself up in the way that it does. Again, it comes back to what I talk about, how the body is always wanting to heal itself. So therefore, if disease or disharmony has shown up in the body, where are the roots and the origins to that? And why, if the nervous system and the immune system, let's say that they're twin sisters, if the nervous system is constantly on and high and wired and tired, then that's going to impair and affect the capacity of the immune system. Now, our immune system should be able to theoretically go into our abdominal cavity, eat up any endometrial deposits, and remove them safely through our urine or whatever, or as feces out of our body. But for some reason, that is being prohibited. And this is where, when we start to think back to our past, as you know, I talk about the 5 Ps: produce, products, property, pass, and people. The 5 Ps, the 5 poisons. If there is unresolved, perhaps mistreatment, abandonment, stemming back to our younger years, you can see how in our subconscious and in our central nervous system, our bodies have adapted in a certain way to cope with what we were born into. And this is why it's quite helpful on the endometriosis naturally journey to really I know myself, I kind of dismissed people in past. I kind of thought that was a bit of nonsense, and how did that affect me? And everything appeared on the surface to be fine. But what I learned was that once I dug down deeper, all was not well, shall we say, in a number of different areas that I had just learned to ignore or switch off from or didn't want to address, because I understand now that some part of me thought, how on earth do I deal with that? What do I do with that information? So when we're talking about abandonment, whether that is, mistreatment or through set of circumstances, could be through from bereavement, it could be from family misfortune, it could be all sorts of different reasons. Acknowledging the fact that there perhaps was that element in your childhood by default can really help you develop the compassion that you need moving forward to learn what self-care is for you. A lot of women with endometriosis that I work with, and I know I was the same myself, felt sort of almost guilty that the idea of self-care was somehow selfish, that they shouldn't do that. And equally, a lot of women really struggle to know what self-care actually means. What is that in a tangible sense, in a tangible form? And this is why I talk about writing your way back to health, writing your journaling in the morning as you wake up, because you tap into different elements of your brain as you're just coming out of sleep, just coming into awake. And it can allow you that sort of wisdom as to, what is happening in your body, or what is not happening in your body, and what does your body need to do what it always wants to do, which is to remove the inflammation, correct all the imbalances, and get itself well and fully functioning again. So this is where, by even just tuning into certain relationships that you might have, or tuning into certain engagements with certain people that you might have, interactions, things like that, can really give you a lot of information about how perhaps your nervous system is set up. If you find that you get triggered or traumatized easily by something, then perhaps, and if you feel it's disproportionate to the event that's happening right now, perhaps there's some residue from the past. Perhaps there's something that happened in your past that maybe you just haven't had the time, the opportunity, the environment, or the safety to give some attention to. But that's where it comes back to the feeling states. That feeling of abandonment can be a very, very raw, real feeling for a lot of women, especially if they've had that their whole life in one way, shape, or form, and then endometriosis or period pains or cysts or fibroids or adenomyosis shows up in their body, and then they're abandoned by the very people that were supposed to help them. So this is where you can then say, well, what can I do with that feeling? As I always advocate, it's very important to get that feeling up and out and onto paper and to explore it. It's a very safe way to do so. Obviously, if you're writing down personal things, keep that journal safe. Don't leave it lying out. Keep it in a locked drawer so that you can start to explore where did that feeling of abandonment originate from? Why am I feeling this feeling? Because ultimately, part of this journey is learning to connect with yourself in a new way, learning who you are at your core, learning kind of the power that you have within you to totally transform your body and your feelings and your emotions given the right environment. So what you're looking to do is, okay, what was my environment like before? And just being real with it. It's not a blame game. It's not about shaming anyone. It's just seeing it as it is. So sometimes the act of just saying, do you know what, my family, I had an alcoholic father and my mother was always depressed, or my mom seemed good, but my dad was never there. I don't know what that is for you, but just being real with the facts. It doesn't mean you have to go writing any letters or making any big grand statements or anything like that, because this has got nothing to do with anyone else. This is to do with you and your journey, and you allowing yourself that right just to see things as they were. In my own journey, I really wrestled with guilt and shame and fear and all sorts of different feeling states, trying to kind of make sense of different people in the family of origin, as they say. I made excuses, but it didn't really matter. The fact was, that's how they were, that's how I felt. And actually now it was up to me to figure out what I could do, what positive steps I could do, kind, small, incremental steps that would provide that feeling of connection to myself, get rid of whatever abandonment feeling that I had, that I felt that some external thing or external person had to fill up, and really try and come back to myself now in a new way. And that's where the journaling was really helpful for me. And not only really helpful, it really led the way on and has continued to lead the way on in insight and guidance and what's kind of going on subconsciously. And if you think of the iceberg, we've got the tip of the iceberg. As you know, you can only see the tip, and then underneath is this vast area of an iceberg that's under the water. And that's very much like our conscious mind, our thinking mind, the one that's thinking and listening to this right now. And what is going on in the subconscious? Invariably, as a child, we take on beliefs about ourselves by the environment that we grow up in. So if we are young and we've been left, and maybe we've had a brilliant mother the first, 6 months, year, 2 years of our life, and then some tragedy happens in the family and she's just not available, or she's busy or whatever, that child at that point, and it could be a 2-year-old, it could be a 4-year-old, it could be a 9-year-old, I don't know what age that is, it could be at any point, if for whatever reason that love or attention, that safety has been withdrawn, then it could be a very real sense of abandonment that takes up residence inside the nervous system. And what happens when you have a woman or a child or a man who then feels abandoned is they then start to turn down and switch off from their thoughts and feelings, because they don't know what to do with them. The real fear of being that primal survival mechanism of survival, of going right back to primitive days where to be cast out of the tribe meant imminent death. That these primal fears can really rise up in anyone if these situations happen, if they haven't learned how to connect to themselves, to be that resource for themselves that they need to be. So this for me is very much part of the journey of learning what is at the root cause. As you know, the medical field, their painkillers, drugs and surgery is just very much about symptom suppression. And we don't know why your immune system is kind of impaired. But what we do know is that we need to support it and strengthen it. We don't know what's maybe caused your nervous system to become wired and tired and dialed up. But what we do know is that we need to dial that down, and we need to soothe that nervous system. We soothe the nervous system like the twin sister that it is. It allows the immune system to dial back up. So this is where using ink on paper, using an explorative mind, a curious mind with compassion, it allows you to go perhaps looking back a little bit. And if you feel that you need a counselor or a therapist or someone to help you on that journey, do make sure it's someone that you feel safe with. Do make sure it's someone that has tremendous compassion for you as you start to kind of unearth or unravel kind of perhaps elements of the past. What can sometimes happen is children take on beliefs about themselves that are false and that are unhelpful and unkind, but those beliefs still reside subconsciously underneath the water of the iceberg. They still play away as the eternal critic in the head, the perfectionist. And what we're trying to do is we're healing, as you're healing your body and healing your emotions, is just trying to make peace with those beliefs. And actually, if you've got beliefs and things that you don't feel that are helpful, if they are massively critical and chastising, I mean, there's nothing wrong in seeking to be the best version of yourself. But if those thoughts and feelings are of chastisement and beratement, then they're unhelpful. And I think what I'm trying to say is that you have the power, by firstly becoming aware of them, to then look at how you can change them to be something that is positive, uplifting, and empowering. And then that feeling of abandonment can then evolve into a feeling of accomplishment and connectedness to why you're here in the world, and that acknowledgement that there might have been, there might have been a particular reason that you didn't know why that situation had happened, but you can separate from the past. Excuse me. You can separate from the past and really step into the present. Because a lot of us, I know from my journey, I've spent, I don't know how many, 40 years living in the past, perpetuating about the past, fretting about the future, but not actually living in the present moment day itself. And for you to learn what is at the root cause of what's causing your pain and your inflammation and things like that, sometimes it pays to kind of, using the phrase, stop at the roadside, really look at what has led you to this point. Who has been around you? Have they been nurturing and supportive? Have they been reflecting back to you your negative beliefs, or have they been reflecting back to you your positive beliefs and making you feel like you are worthy of people treating you in a way that you deserve with respect, but also, are you worthy of treating yourself with respect? Because that's what it's about as well. Learning, what is at the core of. So if you find yourself kind of in situations where you think, why did I do that again? And why did I become a doormat again? And why did I let that boundary slip? And why did I let that person treat me that way? You may find that you've set yourself up with certain styles of, you've adapted yourself to survive in whatever family of origin environment that you were in. Now, as you're older, it's showing up in your body perhaps in different ways. It's showing up in your life, showing up in your feelings, that way of being doesn't fit you anymore. I like to use the analogy. It's almost like when you were a little girl, you had these beautiful pink ballerina shoes with kind of gems and glitter and stuff on them. And then over time, they just became tattered and worn and miscolored. And of course, you outgrew these shoes. And it's the same with how you might have been as you've been growing up. You've adapted to the environment that you were in. But now something, your body, how you're feeling is saying it's unhappy. And this is where we start the very gentle exploration down into kind of what is causing that pain and inflammation from a deep level. Why is the immune system not mopping up the endometrial deposits and reducing the cysts and the fibroids and the adenomyosis? What is prohibiting that? Is it a food, a produce, a product, a property? Is it a person, or is it the past? So this is where, again, you can really start to learn on this endometriosis naturally journey, the power that you have. And equally, don't underestimate how everything is all instinctively intertangled and interconnected, because you are a whole body, whole person. You're not just a uterus. You're a whole woman who has a past, who may have been mistreated, may have been made to feel invisible. But now is the time to really claim your power. Now is your time to really start to get an inkling of what is possible by just making small, tiny, incremental steps. And that first step is, as you know, my favorite thing that I like to advocate is to put ink on paper and journal as you wake up in the morning. You will soothe your feeling of aloneness. You will soothe your feeling of isolation. You will soothe your feeling of abandonment and invisibility by learning to connect to yourself and not abandon yourself, by learning to see yourself and not being invisible to yourself, and learning to connect to yourself and understand what's happening inside your body. So that is me for this week. Keep looking after yourself, as always, to your health.
Thanks for listening to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K Laidlaw. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate us. If you're interested in learning more, you can download your top 5 jumpstart tips at healendometriosisnaturally.com and jump on the VIP email list. Remember to keep you number one. The world needs a healthy you.